Cost-benefit analysis. Governments use cost-benefit analysis to evaluate big investment projects. Cost-benefit analysis involves considering the total costs and benefits of a major project such as building a new motorway, a new hospital, new schools or new wind turbines over a fixed period of time. When politicians or other decision makers analyse the costs and benefits of a project, they have to look at the impact for everyone who's affected. For example, for a major sporting event, along with the private costs and benefits, the external gains to the host nation, such as improved facilities or increased tourism, need to be evaluated, as do the external losses, such as the diversion of public funding from other projects to pay for the event. All of the private and external costs and benefits are given monetary values. Then these values are used to calculate the net social cost or benefit. CBA can be a useful tool for governments when deciding whether or not to provide a public good to correct a case of market failure. For example, if it's left to the free market, then a country is unlikely to have flood events because of the free rider problem. So the government could use CBA to help them to analyse whether or not to correct this market failure. There are various stages in the critical benefit analysis. Firstly, the private and external costs and benefits are identified as accurately as possible. Second, monetary values are then given to the costs and benefits. Where these are assigned to something without a value, this is called shadow pricing. A shadow price can also be assigned to something that has a value when the value isn't truly reflective of its real cost. At the end, the net social cost or benefit is calculated. So we end up with net social benefit equals social benefit minus social cost. Remembering that social benefit is private benefit plus external benefit, and social cost is private cost plus external cost. So at this point, you should have got the idea that it links strongly to the idea of externality. So cost-benefit analysis leads strongly to the idea of externality. So for AQA, it's not that we have to study cost-benefit analysis in its per se, but it is useful as we are obviously studying externalities. So stage 4, there might be uncertainty about whether some of the costs and benefits in the CBA will actually happen. The likelihood or probability of things will be considered and factored into the final calculation. Finally, in general, if there's a net social cost, then the project won't go ahead. But if there's a net social benefit, then it will. It can be difficult to put a value on externalities, so this is a very important thing to note down here. Externalities, both positive and negative, need to be included in a CBA, but they're often difficult to put a monetary value on because they don't have a price decided by the market. For example, tourism. A big sporting event is likely to increase tourism, which will benefit hotels, shops, restaurants, etc. It's very difficult to predict the amount of money this will bring into the economy. Multiplier effects. An injection of money into the circular flow of income is likely to have a bigger effect on GDP than the initial injection, as it keeps moving around the economy. However, it's very difficult to predict how much money will leak from the circular flow of income, and therefore what the size of the multiplier will be. Loss of human life. This is one of the most difficult things to include. People may argue that human life is priceless, but for the purpose of a CBA, it needs to be given a value. For example, a human life may be given a value in terms of estimated earnings for a person's remaining working life. However, this does not take into account the effect that that person has on their family and friends, or anything else they might have enjoyed or achieved in their life. Pollution. Air and noise pollution can have many negative effects. For example, air pollution can affect people's health. It can also damage the environment, contributing to global warming. Noise pollution might affect people's quality of life and bring down the value of their houses. And finally, congestion. Congestion not only includes pollution, but also wastes people's time. Some economists may calculate the value of each hour of wasted time as the amount of money that person would have earned if they were working instead. Other economists may count it as wasted leisure time and therefore give it a different value. Money will be worth less in the future than it is now. So this section you might need to do some further reading on. £10 of benefit from a project in 10 years' time is likely to be worth less than £10 today. In other words, due to inflation. £10, that is, will buy fewer goods and services in the future than it will buy today. This means that for CBA, future costs and benefits need to be discounted to find their present values. The difficult part is trying to decide what discount to apply to future costs and benefit. So, are we going to say that inflation goes up by 3% or 5% or what? We have no idea. In some cases, we can predict that inflation goes up by 2%, but how accurate is that? Some products, for example, cars, their value erodes dramatically over time. Could we say that the building of a leisure centre the price of the leisure centre would probably increase at a quicker value, or actually increase in value, notwithstanding inflation, just as land becomes more scarce to build upon. Anyway, so the difficulty is trying to decide what discount to apply to future costs and benefit. Some people prefer to use low discount rates. For example, this might encourage investment now, and they'll see this as a good thing for economic growth. Others prefer to use high discount rates, as this might reduce the amount of investment now, for example, to help slow down economic growth and protect the environment. Most CBAs will only look at the costs and benefits over a set period of time, for example, 25 years. This can have a big impact on the result of the CBA. If there are big costs or benefits to come in the future, the cost of decommissioning a nuclear plant, it can be argued that this should always be included in the CBA. There are lots of advantages and disadvantages to consider. Advantages of CBA. A CBA is a good way to thoroughly assess the various consequences of a project before work begins, and of assessing and considering the effects of any externalities. The CBA will provide governments with the information they need to make a decision. In general, using a CBA means the project will only go ahead if the benefits to society outweigh the costs. Disadvantages. So CBA has certain limitations too. Usually, some costs and benefits will be missed. Often these won't be big enough to change the overall outcome of a CBA, but sometimes they might have a more significant impact. For example, they might make a project have a net social cost instead of a net social benefit. It can be difficult to put monetary values on the costs and benefits, especially on externalities, as we've just explained. This difficulty can also lead to disagreements between those who are in favour of a project and those who are against it, and bigger variations in the estimated value of any costs and benefits, which could cause market failure. In the future, money will probably be worth less than it is now due to inflation. This needs to be factored into a CBA, but it's difficult to accurately predict how much money will change in value. There's often a significant cost as a result of carrying out a CBA. This can cause government failure, especially if the CBA doesn't provide useful information. CBAs often don't take equity into account. The costs and benefits from affecting different people, so one group of people may benefit from a project, while another group has to, in quotation marks, pay for it. A CBA needs to be unbiased to be effective, but political factors can affect a decision, causing market failure. For example, if a project is considered to be a vote winner, then the government might fund it, even if the costs outweigh the benefits. This is called rent-seeking behaviour. Finally, carrying out a CBA might mean decision makers have too much information. It can cause a decision to be more confusing and take longer to make, leading to market and government failure.